Hello, this is Unexplained America, and I'm your host, Lisa. Thank you for joining me this week as I begin a dive into the group Heaven's Gate. Now, this will be part one. This will be a two-parter, so stay tuned for that. Now, a little business, please. Leave a rating, follow the new Facebook page, subscribe, leave a comment. Like everything that you do greatly helps the podcast. Now, also again, I am mentioning the live show, which will be located at the historic Ritz Theater in Malvern, Arkansas on Saturday, July 11th, 7 p.m. So stay tuned for the promotions and the ticket purchasing link. It will come out on all of the social medias and such, and you can reach out to me if you have any questions about this. This show is with my friends at Cryptids Across the Atlas. So stay tuned. I'm super excited, especially just to check out this historic Ritz Theater, which I'm actually going to visit very soon beforehand. So stay tuned. Listener discretion for this case. I know a lot of you are familiar with this, but there is going to be mention of mental illness and then a mass suicide. More on part two on that, but just listener discretion. Now, on Wednesday, March 26th of 1997, San Diego County Sheriff's deputies, they go to the location of 18241 Colina Norte. Now, this address is located in Rancho Sante Fe, California. They had received an anonymous tip telling them that they would find a mass suicide at this address. The call was really thought to be a prank, but the deputies would find absolutely nothing funny about this. What they found were 39 bodies, ensuing around 1,500 phone calls that would come from all over the country of families and friends concerned about their loved ones. Now, this would make nationwide news and would land the leader of the group, nicknamed Doe, on the cover of Time magazine. So, how did this all begin? You know where we're going. We're going all the way to the back. I wanted to really look at the leaders of this group. Now, I'll just tell you, I have watched the Heaven's Gate documentary on HBO. I will link that. It is not necessarily a research reference, but I have watched it numerous times in the past. I've had HBO for a long time, and I love documentaries, and this has always been of interest to me. However, as good as this documentary is, I still had so many questions, particularly about how this group began, how it got started, like who were the people behind this group. So that's where we're going to go. We're going to go back to the very beginning, okay? So we're going to start with this Doe person. Legally, Doe is Marshall Herff Applewhite Jr. Now, Marshall goes by Herff. Herff, and that's what I'm going to call him. Now, Herff is born in Spur, Texas, which was a tiny town 69 miles east of Lubbock. He is born to Marshall Applewhite Sr., who also actually went by Herff. So that seems like it might have been confusing in the household. I don't know. Big Herff, Little Herff, I don't know. Herff's mom's name was Louise Winfred Applewhite. Now, Senior, I'm going to call him Senior, was a very well-known Presbyterian minister in Texas. He had an impeccable reputation as a godly man, a wonderful minister, a fabulous singer. Like, he was just very popular. Now, Louise was a homemaker, and she was also a really talented person. She played the organ in the church for Senior, so they kind of worked together. Now, the Applewhites, they had a child that passed away in 1925 at birth, but also Herff had two older sisters, Louise and then Jane, and eventually the family had another son named John, not until 1942. Now, Senior, again, he's a beloved minister, and his main focus was church planting. Now, establishing churches. Over his career, he would found 20 churches total, And as you can see, that was a lot of movement for the family because he is planting churches in different areas. So the family moved around quite a bit. Now, in 1940, the family, they're living in Fort Worth, Texas, and the family would land in Corpus Christi, Texas, shortly thereafter. And this is where Herff would attend high school. In fact, he graduates from the Corpus Christi High School in 1948, which is now called the Miller High School. Now, during his time in high school, Herff is very involved. He is in the National Honor Society, he is in the Bible Club, he is in the Science Club. He has a beautiful baritone voice, and he sang in the choral group at school, he's singing in church. He is described as handsome, intelligent, talented, outgoing, magnetic, like all of these things. He is very, very popular, very well known, and very just connected. Now, in the yearbook in 1948, he holds office of president of his class in this spring semester. And he was just really that all around 1940s young man. Like his sister recalls that he was just a joy to be around and an amazing person. So his dad has this kind of charismaticness. His dad is very popular, and Herff is really just like his parents, both in that respect, just outgoing, charismatic. Now, after high school, Herff goes on to attend college at the Austin College in Sherman, Texas. Now, just to give you an idea, because Texas is huge. Now, Sherman is 6 hours north of Corpus Christi, like it's almost to Oklahoma. At the Austin College, he is involved just like he was in high school. He is singing baritone in an a cappella group. He is on the Judiciary Council. He is an active member in the Association of Prospective Presbyterian Ministers, and he is studying philosophy. In fact, in 1952, he graduates from Austin College with a bachelor's degree in philosophy. Now, at this same time, he does have a relationship with a woman named Ann Pierce. Now, they had gone to the same high school, so they knew each other. They were from Corpus Christi. They went to high school together and they fell in love. Now, when she graduated, she went off to school in North Carolina. She attends the Flora MacDonald College there, and she will graduate from there. In fact, she graduates as an honor graduate of the school. She was voted president of the Christian Association Club, and she was crowned the 1952 May Queen at the college. So, just like Herff, she is involved in all the things. She's pretty, she's intelligent, she's outgoing, she's accomplished, you can tell, driven. Now, they would have been like a little power couple, like perfectly matched on paper. They look great. Now, the two of them, they get married. So she had just graduated. They get married on Tuesday, July 1st of 1952, and they have a double ring ceremony, which is officiated by Herff's dad there in Corpus Christi. Now, this was a huge, big write-up in the newspaper society section. And I will say back then, my mom had like a big write-up when she got married, and she got married in much later on, like 1969. Back then, that was kind of like their Facebook. And so the society thing, especially like weddings, christenings, teas, especially during that time, was just like huge. Like that's where you put your information. So they had a big write up, kind of numerous write ups there. Now, their plan at that time was to move to Virginia, the state, and Herff was entering seminary at a school there in Richmond called Union Theology. So they leave Texas, they go to Virginia, and there Herff is working on becoming a minister. So that is his plan. That is now, after a year, Herff decides that this is not for him, the school's not for him, this is not the path that he wants to be on. And he absolutely loves music. Of course, he's very musically inclined, he's very musically talented. So he wants to pursue music. So he actually gets a job in North Carolina as a music director in a Presbyterian church. So around 1954 as well, Herff is drafted like into the Army Signal Corps. They are like the communications protectors of the Army. So protecting radio, satellites, all the communications. Now, this is a little confusing, but some accounts say during the time between 1953 and 56, like somewhere in there, he does try to go to New York City, it says, to make it as a singer. I could not find anything definitive to this, but this is what is said. Now, he definitely was going anywhere and everywhere and definitely pursuing music during this time. Now, by 1956, he and Anne are living in Boulder, Colorado, and he enters the University of Colorado there. Now, he is also, they're busy, building their family. And in October, they have their first child. They have a boy, and Herff is also working in music ministry in a Presbyterian church there in Boulder. So he's working on his master's at the university, but he's also working. So in 1957, he is working as a choir director for a Presbyterian Pan American school, and he is singing with several different groups, which includes the Denver Symphonies. He is very busy. He is always working. He's always singing. He's always connected. There's obviously a lot of drive and a lot of talent there. Now, in 1960, Herff officially graduates from the college with his master's degree in music. After he graduates, Herff and Ann, they move the family back to Texas. So they had been in Colorado, they go back to Texas. Now, in Texas, Herff is continuing his love with singing. He's singing with everybody. He is singing with the Corpus Christi Symphony. He is singing with the Houston Symphony. There is a write-up in 1961 discussing him guest singing at an event, and they discuss in this write-up about his extensive career and also how he had had several television appearances by this time. So he is involved in singing and in his career, and you can tell that this is where what makes him happy. Now, in 1962, Herff, he gets a position as a professor of voice and director of choral activities at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Now, he is there for a couple years. There is a report that he was let go because of inappropriate relationship with a young man. Now, there's nothing to really collaborate such, but he's still working. Herff does not have a break in his employment or in his busyness. Okay. So, not to say I don't believe that this happened. I definitely do. There will be other sources that come forward that discuss that Herff was either homosexual and hiding it or bisexual. This is the 1960s. So obviously those relationships were looked down on. This kind of reminds me, if you are a longtime listener or if you have listened to our episode on Ruby Stapleton. So yes, so Ruby was married to a man that was a professor who was a very accomplished person, and he had alleged situations where he was let go after inappropriate relationships with the same sex, I should say. And in that time, of course, that was looked down on. And obviously he was married. So it kind of reminds me, it's like people might have been let go, but it wasn't something that was out and about. They didn't, quote unquote, depending on who the person was, ruin their chances of future employment. So it's kind of like, okay, you have been found out and you need to move on. Nowadays, things are very different, obviously, but I will say this, if he was having a relationship with a young man, no matter the age of the young man, that this definitely would be what we would consider inappropriate due to the fact that he would be seen as There's even laws against, especially in ministry, if you were in a position to be over someone and then you're, having sexual relationships with them, no matter the sex, age, or whatever, that can be definitely problematic and an issue, a big issue. Bottom line is, Herff is no longer with the University of Alabama, and then he is, by the summer of 1963, he is in North Carolina working as a summer director in an outdoor drama theater. So he's definitely continuing his work and kind of moving around to different places. Now, by 1966, Herff is the associate music professor at the University of St. Thomas, which is located in Houston. So he's back in Texas, back in Houston. Now, there is a large write up, and it describes him as the director of a production called The Unicorn, the Gorgon, and the Manicore. He is said in this write up to be an energetic conductor, leading the singers with one hand, and in the other, directing the instrumentalists with the other hand. And these instrumentalists were kind of a group from the University of Houston. So they were doing a collaboration for this show. Now, during this time, Herff is said to have had 15 roles with the Houston Grand Opera. So he is a very busy man, a very talented man. Now, during this time, it said that he is estranged from Anne, and they officially get divorced in 1968. And it states that she knew of his affairs. So, by 1970, his world is pretty much crumbling. He had been estranged from Anne, divorced. He was estranged from his children. He wasn't communicating with his children. He is let go from the University of St. Thomas, and it's stated for reasons of mental instability. Now, he had been on their staff for 4 years by this time. He is still employable. Like I said, it's just really reminiscent of, Ruby Stapleton's husband's in that case, but he is still employable. He is still getting work. People are still, he is a very energetic, and he is a very talented person. So he gets work as the director of music with the St. Mark's Episcopal Church. And then he's also director of music during this time of the St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Houston. So he is still working in churches, doing the music directorship now. By January of 1971, Herff's father passes away, and this is said to be really devastating to Herff. And obviously, losing a parent, a loved one, is super crushing, but it is said to really crush him, depress him, bother him extremely. In 1972, Herff is still struggling. His father has died. He's estranged from his children. He is 40 years old. He's been let go from the universities that he's been employed at in the past. So he is struggling. Now, it's said that he goes into the hospital in Houston, and according to his sister, he has severe heart blockage, and this is the reason why he's in the hospital. Now, during this hospital stay, she says that he has a near-death experience, and that she believes this experience alters Herff, who she believes is already mentally ill, but she said will remain so for the rest of his life. So this is coming from his sister. Now, there are multiple stories on why Herff is in the hospital. Herff himself and some of the members of the Heaven's Gate group, they will say that Herff was at the hospital seeing a friend. So he's just there visiting a friend. Another account is by a reporter named Evan Thomas, who he investigates the group, and he states that Herff was in the hospital for mental illness reasons. Now, I personally believe Herff's sister, and obviously Herff himself, states that he was at the hospital meeting a friend, but I do believe Herff's sister, she had kind of zero reason to lie or make up a story. Now, Herff, when he's in the hospital, he meets a registered nurse named Bonnie Lou Trousdale Nettles. before we kind of slip into talking about Bonnie, who is T, so the doe and T, she is the T part. Now, Bonnie's daughter, Terry, will say something totally different, which she was very young when this happened, when all this happened. So I think it's just a remembrance. But she states that Herff and Bonnie met at a Houston Music Theater Center, she disputes the fact that they met when he was mentally unstable in the hospital. So again, I would think Herff himself said he was at the hospital when he met Bonnie, and that's how he met Bonnie. I would think that Herff's sister had it correct. So I think it's just memories, and Terry is her name, Bonnie's daughter, Terry. She was probably 18, 19 at the time that they're meeting, just very young. So, and also just going, and she'll say this later on, but just going by the fact that she would have been going off of what they were telling her at the time. So they could have been lying to Terry saying, oh, we met at this center. So again, I feel like her sister is the best source on that. Bonnie, we're going to switch over and discuss Bonnie. Now, Bonnie Lou was born on Monday, August 29th of 1927 in Houston, and so she is a little bit older than her. She was the fourth child born to her parents, William and Elizabeth, which Elizabeth went by Lee. Now, William was a painter and a paper hanger, and I imagine this is maybe wallpaper that he hung. I'm sure wallpaper is very popular. It's still popular. I love wallpaper myself. Now, Bonnie is only 2 years old when her father dies in 1931. He is only 53 years old and he dies of bladder cancer. Now, Bonnie's mom, she remarries, and her and one of Bonnie's sisters, so the other kids, of course, Bonnie's like the youngest of four. So the other kid, her other siblings are grown. They are living in Houston with Lee and then their stepfather, James Odell. Now, James, incidentally, or maybe not incidentally, he is also a painter. I thought that was interesting. Now, Bonnie grows up pretty comfortable. Just, I would say, enough comfort that she is frequently in the newspaper society section in Houston as she's growing up. So her name pops up a lot for different events like attending tea parties. She is in a whole lot of weddings as a bridesmaid and such. So she's very let's say connected in the Society of Houston at that time. Now, she maybe is not as outwardly talented as her, but she too sang. So she was in the Glee Club when she was in high school, and she too was very plugged in and busy in school. So she attends and graduates from the Charles H. Milby High School. On top of the Glee Club, she was in the dramatic club, and Bonnie, she graduates in 1945. Now, she had already entered in to a nursing program in May of 1944. So while she was in high school, she was also in a nursing program. So she's working on her nursing degree through this program. And like I mentioned before, she is very much listed all through like the 40s in the society pages, very connected to many other young ladies at that time who were getting married, and there's a lot of write-ups about this going on. Now, on Tuesday, May 11th of 1948, Bonnie graduates from her nursing program, and this program was via the hospital that she was educated in. So basically, they taught the students, which were mainly look like females, and then they were, on the job as well. But this was the Herman Hospital in Houston, and she is one of 89 graduates, and they have a ceremony at the Baylor University School of Medicine. Now, Bonnie, she meets and marries a man named Joseph Nettles, and he is the same age as her. He had actually fought in World War II and earned a Purple Heart. Now, they marry December 30th of 1949, and they have two write-ups in the Houston papers about their wedding. I did think I want to share this because I thought it was really fabulous sounding. But in these write ups, they go really deep into talking about the ceremonies and talking about like what the bride wore and all these things. But she wore, and this is at her wedding, a wine colored gown. Not a white wedding dress or anything like that. I thought that that was pretty fabulous. So, now Bonnie, she grew up in the Baptist church and they are married at the Broadway Baptist Church in Houston. So, everything outwardly with her and he went by Joe, to friends and family just appears to be just a really happy, normal situation, like very happy. Now, Bonnie works in nursing and Joe works first. He kind of holds several jobs, but he works with the U.S. Postal Service. He works for Eastern Airlines, and then he gets into the engineering industry. And they end up having 4 children together. And I already talked about Terry was their oldest. Now, fast forward to 1972. So, Bonnie, she's raised Baptist. And during this time, she is very interested in new age movements. Like, she's become very interested over kind of the years, the 60s and the 70s. Like, she loves astrology, she loves spiritualism. She's kind of seeking and looking at maybe just other religions even. So she's just seeking. Now, it says that she is very into seances and that she feels like she communes with spirits and with people that have passed on. So this is kind of where she is headed. And she is very interested and believing in like UFOs, aliens, those kind of things. Now, by this time in 72, her marriage is completely falling apart. Her husband, Joe, is not supportive of her spiritual pursuits. He believes that she's kind of losing her mind, losing her focus, and he is not supportive of everything that she's been into. And this kind of was leading up. This wasn't an overnight thing. Now, Terry, Bonnie's oldest daughter, who we would have said like in 72, she is 20 years old, and she recalls a situation that kind of outlines her mother for her. And I will say, Terry was extremely close to Bonnie. They were like extremely close. Terry described how she was when she was a teenager, she was a candy striper. So not only were they mother and daughter, but they were best friends. And then they even like worked together because Bonnie was working as a nurse in the hospital and then Terry would be there candy striping. So they just had a very, very close relationship. But Terry recalls a situation where her and her mother, they're outside, they're together, they're looking up at the sky, and they're discussing how they wished for a spaceship to come pick them up to take them to another dimension. And I thought that was really interesting conversation there. And but they both kind of believed that there was so much more out there and that they weren't of this world. Okay. Now, Terry's beliefs will be very different from Bonnie's moving forward. Okay. But at that time, this was a shared experience. So Bonnie, of course, we discussed, she meets Herff in 1972. Some records say 71, but sometime in there, 71, 72, she meets Herff. And she is working, he is there in the hospital. They immediately connect. And she immediately is talking to him about astrology and different things. And she offers to do an astrological reading for Herff. And this is kind of the beginning of just a very deep friendship, what will build into a partnership, just a deep connection between the two of them. Now, Herff would explain in an interview later on that the moment he and Bonnie met, he just knew it was life changing. Like he said that he had been looking for this moment. And again, he's gone through a lot of struggles. He is on the struggle bus at the time that they're meeting. And she is too, because she is also, has a failed relationship, a partner in Joe that, is not the same as her. So they are both at a point in their lives. And I will say, she's older than him, but mm, I guess some people might say that this could be like a midlife crisis, so to speak. I say quotation marks there. Herff says he felt he had known Bonnie forever, and he had also wanted very badly for someone to do an astrological chart on him. So when he met her, and of course she's mentioning these things, like he states that he immediately ran out to his car and got his birth certificate so that she could do this chart for him. So Bonnie does this chart for her, and they pretty much decide, upon talking, that they've known each other in a previous life. So they believe in reincarnation, and they're like, we know each other. We have been together in a previous life. Like there's just too much of a connection here. And this connection is not like a sexual connection or any type of like that. It's very platonic connection between the two of them. They decide, of course, that they've known each other, and now that they have been brought together, they have a very important mission to perform together in their own new, what they'd say, incarnation together. So, from what I've read from different variations, like Bonnie pretty much moves Herff into her home, takes her in. Terry will recount knowing the two of them together, but they're very together from kind of almost day one. Now, they are partnering up together, and they kind of right away found a venture called the Christian Arts Center. That's what they call it, and it's there in Houston in 1972. So with this center, they're selling books, kind of new age books, astrology, mysticism, all of these things. And I will say all of these things that more or less Bonnie's into. So this is more or less like she is kind of the older of the two, and her kind of moving forward. We'll probably get more into this in part two, but yeah, he looked to her like she was really like she kind of knew more than her. So she was more or less leading her into these things. But these books were new age meditation, mysticism, and even though the name said Christian, I would say more not involved with that. Now, another love between the two of them was definitely UFOs, like extraterrestrial lives, other lives, UFO spaceships. Like this was very interesting to both of them. And they, on top of selling books, they were also offering classes on these topics. Okay, so they're kind of doing that. Now, this venture like fails pretty quickly. Like within a few months, they're not making any money. They're not, yeah, it fails. And Bonnie, of course, her marriage had been failing, was failing. She was already separated, estranged. Like, she officially divorces Joe, like their divorce is final on March 11th of 1973. And Terry's, grown, so to speak, but Bonnie is leaving Joe with their three younger children. And it's just kind of like, and Terry's on her own. So Bonnie is connected to her, and this is her focus. And she pretty much is saying bye bye to the family, even to Terry at this time. Okay. So she's like, I am being led to be with Herff, and we have things to do. After the Christian Arts Center's failed, after the marriage is completely dissolved, Herff and Bonnie decide to move to the country, and they start a retreat center called No Place. And when I say no, it's KNOW, like to know something, but they call it No Place. And this name is derived for them from, quote unquote, knowing thyself, and of course a homonym of no place, like this is no place, I guess, to be. But they are viewing this as a utopia place to find oneself. They are also using this time to research for themselves. Like they're looking at just a lot of other spiritual endeavors, and looking at just other things. They do consult at this time with a Filipino occultist who also has interest in Hindu. Now, he renames Bonnie Shakti Devi, meaning powerful goddess. So, as you can see, kind of leader there. Okay. Now, Herff, he gives him the name of Sri Pranava. Now, this meant auspicious mantra. I think that's interesting. So, she's basically powerful goddess, and he is auspicious mantra. It sounds about right. And I'll get into a lot more on all that in part two, but I will say I have watched Herff's kind of quote unquote speaking, preaching to his students. Yeah, he was long-winded. You guys are probably thinking I am too. He was very long-winded. He could talk for hours. This situation was pointing to the two of them's kind of rebirth, and quickly Bonnie and Herff begin to refer to themselves as the two because they felt they were no longer individuals, but that they were very connected to each other. So they were the two. And in fact, they will have numerous little names, but the two during this time. Now, together, they are wandering the countryside. Like they're not working, they're just kind of making ends meet, doing what they can. I think they're living off of credit cards, and we'll get into this, but they are just wandering. They're wandering, and the two of them are speaking to people, and they are telling people that they will be martyred and resurrected. Like they feel like they are the two witnesses from Revelations. Like they are very looking at apocalyptic times. And yes, so they feel like they are the two. They also tell people that a UFO will descend in a technological enactment of the rapture and hover midair to pick up the two of them plus anyone else who believes them and accepts this message and that they are telling people. Now, they are believing very much, again, in the apocalypse and something called the catastrophic millennialism, meaning the world is extremely evil and it will end soon. So they are very much a part of that movement, and this is what they are speaking and preaching kind of as they're wandering around the country. Like they're just looking for people to join them and pay for these wanderings. Now, they wander back to the Houston area, and with this kind of, like we just talked about, the religious belief, they connect with a woman that they had actually taught classes to when they first had their Christian Arts Center. Now, this woman is named Sharon. Now, Sharon is in a failed relationship. She's not in a good way. And after about 6 days of kind of talking to Sharon, sharing their gospel, sharing their message, she agrees to join them. So this is May of 1974, and Sharon's kind of like their first real member, first real follower. Now, the three of them, they go on the road, they are traveling, and there is one instance that pops up that they come to Boise State University to evangelize to the school, and they meet an anthropology professor named Max Pavicic. Now, he will state later that the two walk into his office. They immediately ask him to leave everything behind and come with them, and that they would be publicly crucified, and that he needed to come with them so that he would be saved with them by the UFO. Now, he declines their offer, but he will speak of them and state that they seemed very sincere in what they were saying, very intense, and he specifically talks about Herff having weird eyes. And I feel like I don't know about you guys in my personal life, like when someone is very intense sometimes and they don't blink, that is off-putting. And I'm like, okay, they had weird eyes. And I will be like, for some reason, I don't know if I'm just like, I don't know, I get very freaked out by people that have the weird eyes. Like I don't trust what they're going to do. So I'm like, I got to get out of there. I just have a weird thing there. Now, Sharon really quickly, I mean, she's with the two for maybe like 6 months, okay? And she had abandoned her whole family. Like she had walked out on her family. I mean, what they're asking people to do is just basically pick up, walk out on their family, get themselves removed from their so-called humanness. That's what they're wanting. So she had a 2-year-old daughter. So she goes back to her family. Now, on the road, it will come to light that the three of them had been living off of Sharon's credit cards. So, Sharon's husband had actually turned in the two for credit card theft. And there will be multiple instances where this happens in their future. But yes, they are living off of Sharon's credit cards. Now, ultimately, Sharon drops the charges because they were her cards. She refutes that they were stolen and states that the two had permission to use the credit cards. Now, on Tuesday, August 27th, 1974, so the two have they have this fraud thing out there. The two of them, they actually meet, they set up a meeting in a motel room, and they are under like the name of like a reporter. They get this motel room. They are using other names. They're not using their real names. And they go to this motel, they set up a meeting with a newspaper man, and this is Herringer, Texas, where they're at. Now, they tell this newspaper man that they are reincarnated, they are going to be murdered soon, and they tell the man their names, as I mentioned before. They tell him they're Shri and Shakti. So this is the names that they tell the man. Now, they say they're spiritually led to Herringer, and they were led to call this newsman to tell their story, and that they want this story ran. Well, the actual story that is ran and what actually happens is right after they do this interview, the Harlinger police arrest them. So a police officer, he sees a California license plate on this vehicle that they're driving, and he runs it, and he finds out that this car is reported as stolen. So he stops the car, he arrests the two of them, and then he's running, background checks on all of this. Well, he finds out Bonnie's wanted for credit card fraud. So she's wanted for fraud. They're both wanted for stealing this car because evidently this car, they had rented it in Oklahoma City, but they had never returned it. And this had been several months. Okay. Ultimately, Herff is the one that is held responsible for the whole auto theft. So he is sent to St. Louis, I guess, where this actual, I guess, the owners of this rental company are out of. So he is, and this is where they file the charges. He is sent to St. Louis. He is jailed. He is awaiting his trial for this auto theft. Now, Bonnie is let go. And like we mentioned, Sharon had dropped the charges. The police couldn't do anything about the credit card charges. So Bonnie's let go. Now, Herff is in jail. He ends up pleading guilty, and by the time he goes to trial, he had already sat in jail for 6 months. They give him 4 months for the auto theft, so they count it as served time. So he is released. He is released sometime, and this puts us in 75, okay? Now, while he was in jail in Missouri, Bonnie was back in Texas, and she's just working as a nurse. She's just working to make some money during this time. Now, this time in jail for Herff does allow him plenty of time to think and write. And so he writes up an official belief system for the two of them. Because at this point, they're just kind of wondering. And of course, they're really focused on, of course, this apocalypse. They're focused on the revelations and the two of them being the witnesses. But he's putting more into this. Now, I will read a little bit of the statement. So this is kind of the first statement for their group. So he starts off saying, what religions have sought to understand since the beginning of their origin is what is above the human level of existence. Most have taught that if an individual lives a good life, adoring some savior, that he will inherit some heaven after his death. Only if it were that simple. That viewpoint is as inaccurate as the caterpillar believing that if he died a good caterpillar, he will mysteriously awaken in a rose blossom and live there forever with the king butterfly. Now, he goes on a lot about this. Now, furthermore, he states approximately 2,000 years ago, an individual of that next kingdom forfeited his body of that kingdom and entered a human female's womb, thereby incarnating as the one history refers to as Jesus of Nazareth. He awakened to this fact gradually through the same metamorphic process and came to know that he had incarnated for the express purpose of telling and showing, even to the point of proof, that the next kingdom can be entered by overcoming the human aspects and literally converting into a man or creature of that next kingdom. The kingdom of his father, one who is already a member of that kingdom. By his resurrection, he proved that death can be literally overcome and that a permanent body for the next kingdom is acquired from the human kingdom. He did not leave his body in the grave, he converted it into his body. Now, he goes on a lot more about this body. As you can see, he discusses he uses the same language like kind of over and over, and it just becomes confused even, I will say that. So he talks about Jesus leaving in a cloud of light, and then he abbreviates to say that this cloud of light they believe is a UFO. He goes in to state that there are two individuals here now, so talking about himself and Bonnie, who have also come from that next kingdom, incarnate as humans, awakened, and will soon demonstrate the same proof of overcoming death. They are sent from that kingdom by the Father to bear the same truth that was Jesus. So he is aligning himself and Bonnie as Jesus. Now he ends on this. Those who can believe this process and do it all will be lifted up individually and saved from death. Literally, if you seek those two while they are here, they will gladly fill you in on the details and assist those who wish to follow in this path. If this speaks to you, respond according to your capabilities or needs. For your sake, give this opportunity your best. So, again, this is now March of 1975, and this is the official statement of Herff and Bonnie. Now, they come back together after he's out. By April, they go out west. They go out to the West Coast and they meet up with a metaphysical group in the home of a psychic named Joan. Now, a little side note, Joan will later on just basically talk about this group as being a cult. She will later on discuss how she should have filed certain things against them because she had ended up giving them like $400 or $500. Anyway, so Joan opens her home at this point to them, and there's differing reports, but they say there's between 40 and 80 people at this meeting. And instead of saying the two, so they don't introduce themselves as the two, they introduce themselves as guinea and pig. Now, yes. Now, these individuals, they were kind of into this new age. They had been under a different teacher named Clarence King. So a different movement, a different teacher. And actually, they were practicing all kinds of new movements, but one was tantric. They are tantric. Now, the two, their teachings are very non-sexual. They're asexual. They are stating that you have to become higher, quote unquote, than your humanness. So they believe that like sex and drugs, alcohol, all these bad things are just overcoming your humanness. So they are actually quite opposite of these people. But these people at this time, they were pretty prepped and ready for a different message because they were really doubting the teachings of their current teacher. Like they were doubting. Herff and Bonnie end up gaining about 27 followers from this situation. Now they move on to other meetings. They're moving around Oregon, and by May, they have a meeting where they gain like another 24 people. So now they're like over 50 people all in a very quick time frame, and they're kind of teaching and talking to these groups, and they're kind of moving around, and they're just kind of living on nothing. They're staying with people, they're meeting at campgrounds. Very nomadic situation here. By September 14th of 1975, they make it to Waldport Inn in Waldport, Oregon, and they have a massive meeting there. There are so many people that show up. And I will say, I will show the meetings. They would post flyers for these meetings talking about, kind of giving a little bit of background. So I will post that and get into that. But they have a lot. This is a massive meeting. There are over 200 people that show up. And from this meeting, they gain about 33 more followers. And when they take on their followers, like, they are being very clear that they tell these people to, you're leaving your families behind. You're leaving your possessions behind. You're leaving your jobs, and you're going to bring whatever money you do have, and we're going to put it all together and give it to us for communal living. So this is very clear what these people are doing, and they are doing it. Like, again, they already had about 50, they get 33 more. They're about at 80 something followers at this point. Now after this happens, so there's like 33, and I will say there is a way in the future interview where one of their followers that eventually leaves the group, he says that there were 34 because he was one of them that went from this Waldport Inn meeting. So, but a lot of reports say 33. So after this happens and these people are leaving, you can imagine the uproar with these people's families and friends that they are leaving. And in Waldport, these families are reporting these people as missing. And so by October, the group is making national news across the country with headlines like Pied Pipers of UFO Trip, Minister's Son and Nurse. Another one was 20 Missing in Oregon After Talking of a Higher Life. Like, there were countless articles about Bonnie and Herff servicing in October, like countless. The paper, they talk about 20 people missing in Oregon because their families or friends reported them missing to the police. So you have the Waldport police, they get the Oregon State Police involved. And so there's an official investigation on these missing persons. And again, as these news reports emerge, people are coming forward, and then even, remember, Sharon comes forward to be interviewed because now she's out of the group. But people fill them in, and other people that have just went to the meetings that didn't believe it. A lot of those people were press people that were just getting information. So they've acquired these information to do these articles, but they're talking about how they're saying that Bo and Peep, so they were calling themselves Bo and Peep. They were also the other names, the two, Guinea and Pig, like a lot of things. But they're saying Bo and Peep, Herff and Bonnie, and they convey that the two are talking about the death of a caterpillar and the kingdom and resurrection of Jesus and UFOs. And they're saying that they're preaching this human individual metamorphosis. So basically, their group at this time is going by the acronym HIM, Human Individual Metamorphosis. And another name for them they also had going on was Total Overcomers Anonymous. There were kind of numerous names. I will say, Herff and Bonnie are very, in this time frame, they are very unorganized. Their thoughts are unorganized. Obviously their names are shifting, of their group, of themselves. Like, it's just always something different. I think the bottom line was that they were the two witnesses and going to be martyred, and that they're also Jesus. But everything else was like shifting daily, okay? Just shifting daily. So there is another source at that time that states that Bonnie and Herff are from a quote unquote next kingdom. And again, like we talked about, they are Jesus. They are going to leave on a UFO. And they also talk about Jesus left on a UFO. So now they're kind of rewriting the Bible there. Now, at these meetings, something else that is shared in these articles, and again, these meetings are, there are people, there are journalists there. There are a lot of naysayers at these meetings. So a lot of these things being printed, of course, are poking fun at this whole thing. Definitely calling a cult, definitely poking fun at Bo and Peep, the two, whatever. They're outlining this as like absolutely crazy. One of the journalists, they distinctly ask at one of the meetings, do you have to die to get in your version of heaven, this next level? And the two answer at the meeting, and this is one of the meetings in Oregon, absolutely not. They say absolutely not, that you do not have to be dead. In fact, at that point, they are really talking on a physical level, and they are saying physically, we will be taken in this UFO to the kingdom of heaven. Physically. Now, in December of 1975, Herff and Bonnie, they are at a meeting at the Red Carpet Inn in Oklahoma City. Now, they are asked about, they have been in the newspapers quite a bit, and people are asking about the 22 or so people that are missing from Oregon. Herff and Bonnie assure the crowd, all they say is they are still on Earth doing their Father's work. So they are trying to convey, yes, that these people are still alive, because there was a lot of concern that they had done something to these people, nefarious. Now, Bonnie does not convey where the people are. So she's like, I'm not going to tell you where they are, but they are still alive. They're very safe and still working and alive. Now, more than 200 people had shown up for this meeting as well in December. Now, during this meeting, the two of them are going by the two. And in this article, it talks about how followers who had already left the group were stating that you had to give up, your worldly possessions, family, friends, sex, smoking, and alcohol, and you give over all your money that you have to the two. Now, after this meeting in Oklahoma City, the police respond because, of course, people are very on guard about this, about the two, quote unquote. They respond to the newspapers that this group appears to move on and no one is reported missing. So at this point, the group has gotten such infamy for making people disappear. So they're kind of starting to see, okay, we're going to these meetings. We have a lot of people concerned about what is happening or what has happened to others that have joined us. So kind of behind the scenes here. So, the two are traveling to these meetings. They are not with their followers. They have split up their followers into little 10 people groups or whatever. They have them kind of camping all around the country in different places. And they're kind of communicating with them through writing and different things. But the two aren't with them. They have no leaders. It is very, very unorganized. There's no leadership. There's nothing going on. There's rules set in place, but no one's enforcing them. So people are pretty much just kind of coming and going. They're doing what they want. They're kind of together, but not really. And so after this period, the two, between 75 and 76, they are traveling all about. They have a list, and I'll post this list. There is a list of where they go in the meetings that they have, and they pretty much go to almost every state. They come here to my home state of Arkansas during this time, and they stopped in Little Rock and did an interview, and they stopped in Fort Smith, by the way. I would love to know if any listeners went to any meetings in the 70s. Please let me know. I would love to know. But they definitely made 2 stops during that time period in Arkansas. Now, in 1976, they post these questions. And when I say they post, they are sharing and spreading their publications through flyers. They're doing mailers, flyers, and different things. But they have 17 steps that were written up. And these steps, from what I understood, were written up by Bonnie. Now, the first question, because this is what they're wanting to know of their followers: Can you follow instructions without adding your own interpretation? Can you deliver instructions as you receive them, or do they change according to your computer, like is in their mind? Do you participate in inconsiderate conversation, polluting the ears of others while you and your partner work things out? Are you physically clumsy, breaking things because you handled them too harshly or carelessly? Do you halfway complete a task because of your poor standard of what is thorough? Do you put tasks off, procrastinate? Are your patterns of cleanliness, sensitivity, gentleness consistent, or are they good only when spotlighted? Do you use more of something than is adequate, like cooking, toothpaste? Like, do you go from one extreme to another, as from overeating to undereating? Are you sensitive when approaching another individual about something you want to discuss? Do you needlessly ask a question when the answer is obvious, or a moment of silent observation would quickly reveal the answer? Are you pushy, aggressive, interfering, or demanding in any way? Has familiarity caused you to become so relaxed with your partners or others that your actions or words don't hold enough restraint? Are you gentle, simple, cautious, and thoughtfully restrained in your steps and all other physical actions or words? Have you outgrown defensiveness and its flip side, martyrdom? Can you understand and review in your mind all the ways in which members of the next level are sensitive? When your teachers have asked someone to do a task and it relates to you, do you treat that task and its delivers with as much respect as you would if it came directly from your teacher? So they basically put this together as a way to kind of self promote what they're expecting, but to ask these questions. Okay, are you able to do these things? Are you doing these things? This is what is expected of you. And this was issued out to prospective people, but this is issued out, of course, to the current followers. Now, by April of 1976, so after all these meetings, Bonnie and Herff, they send word to all their followers that are there, because again, they've been traveling, to meet up at a place called Medicine Bow National Forest, and this is in Wyoming. So what they want to do is they're saying, okay, we're closing our harvest and we're stopping meetings and we're going to meet up together, and then we're going to move on together with what we have. Now, around 88 people or so show up. They meet in Wyoming. So this is what's left. They had probably gotten up to maybe 200 followers, but this is what is left. There's about 88. Now, it says by the end of 1976, they expel 19 members. And so that's where the whole 17 steps came in. Like, they really wanted so-called quality over quantity with their members. And they really, as you can see, they wanted people out of the group that weren't complying with these 17 steps as well. So it was like, if you're going rogue, if you're going on your own, then they realize these people are really smart. They realize if these people aren't abiding, they're going to create problems within the group to cause other people not to be compliant. So it's very brilliant, really, if you look at it that way. But so we're in 76. They have met. They are stopping the meetings. The two are together. They are communally living. They are going from campground to campground. They are asking for funds. A lot of the people that are coming into the group had serious money, either family money or serious money, and they are living off of funds brought in by the followers of the group. Okay, so we're looking at like the 80 or so. Now, out in the world, in 1976, the news, obviously, of the organization is not good. It's not pretty. There are articles, still upon articles, about the two. There is a couple called the Greenberg. So they are in the newspapers. They had they had literally come to a meeting. They follow the group. They leave behind 2 children to follow the two. And I mean, they have to, and we're talking, these children were little. They were like 3 and 1. They were very tiny children. And this is a husband and wife team. So they had signed over their children to a person, but one of the children was actually had a different dad. And so the dad took the children because he was like the biological father. And so when the Greenbergs wanted out, they wanted their children back, they faced a huge court battle. So this is the kind of articles that are being reported in the news. And then, of course, they go into the organization talking about what they know about the two. The group goes underground. I mean, they keep to themselves. They are not looking for press. They have so much bad press from the meetings and the people being reported missing and such. And so they are keeping, and then they also know, okay, well, it doesn't really help if we're going out and getting all these people to follow us through these meetings, but yet we're not with them to actually keep them in. They're just leaving. There's nothing going on. So they actually are tending to their flock. Like now they're actually with their people. And when I say with their people, they have other people within the group. They form little groups. They don't give themselves up to these people fully. Like they have other people, like leaders within the groups, like tiers. But they are tending more closely to their flock, spending more time with the people than they were, because of course they weren't spending any time with them. Now, nothing between 76 and 78, nothing pops up. So in 1978, there is a article that pops up, first one in 2 years time. It is two women. They show up in Portland, Maine, and they're calling themselves Ann and Happy. Now, they are spreading the gospel of Bo and Peep, and they're saying Bo and Peep. And it's still that same message as before about Bo and Peep are the two witnesses, and they are going to go in a UFO. That same message is the same. Now, about 25 people show up for this meeting in Maine. The women are like, give us your contact numbers if this message sounds like it's something for you. Nobody is interested and nobody joins from that meeting. And again, that was the first article at all about a meeting in several years. So they are truly underground. Now, in 1980, there is a guy that he had been in the radio. He had met with the group in Oregon, and he does a follow-up. His name is Larry. He does a follow-up news article discussing how the two just haunt him. He's still thinking about them from, 1975. And he's just doing a follow-up article about them from that time period. And he relays them coming to Oregon and how they had the followers give them from up to 70,000 or 100,000 in monies. Although they seemed very unmotivated, he said, by money, that people were giving them that money for communal living, and that's how much money that they got away with. Okay. And in this article, it is conveying at that time in 1980 that nobody knows where the two went or where the two are. Deep underground, they're keeping to themselves. And during this time, they're kind of fluctuating between the areas of the West Coast. They're fluctuating between Colorado and Texas. They're still doing the whole campground thing. If they have enough money, they'll rent houses. They'll rent 2 or 3 in a cluster. It just depends on their money flow, really. So, and I will say by that time they had initially had some flow of money when they were doing the meetings, but the money does run out and members do get jobs to support themselves. So that's going on too. So, and Herff will discuss in later article interviews that, he was like, if we had to dig a hole, for some people to make some money, we would do whatever we needed to do to make some money, type of situation. So they are just living together, working together, very underground. Now, in September of 1983, there is an article that appears in a San Francisco newspaper, and it discussed how 23 parents of members of the group, of what they're calling a cult, have formed together, calling their group, the parents group, Family Network. Now, one mom in the group, her name is Vera Hadley, she states her son Bill left, and they're from Alabama. He left her at age 24 and joined the group in 76. And she goes on to say that she met with the family network in San Francisco, and she set up a dinner, which she thought it was with her son's like ex-girlfriend. Like she was just trying to get with the girlfriend to find out information about Bill. Like she just wanted to know if he's okay, wanted some contact because there had been no contact with Bill since 76, since he had left. Now, she shows up for the dinner. So she's recounting this in this article. And she shows up and Bill shows up and he tells her that he is out of the group. He is working in computers. He's doing really good. He looked good. He seemed good. Like she was relieved because she just wanted to know that he was alive. Like she had no clue what had happened to him. Now, the family, they go on in the article to talk about how the families, they don't care if these people, if their children are in the group. They're not wanting to pull their children out. They know their children have free will, but they just want to see them. Like that's all they want. And one article discusses a professor named Robert Balch, who in the 75, 76 time frame, he had gone to meetings and he infiltrated the group. And he said he never met Bo and Peep, but they would, and he states in 83 that they would sometimes be called T and Doe. And I will say these names were said to come from like T loved, which is Bonnie, loved The Sound of Music and the song Do Re Mi. So it's like Do was at the beginning, T was at the end. That's where these names derived. Now, Do was Herff and T is Bonnie. And this Robert goes on to say that the two believe that they are two witnesses in Revelation. So kind of that same line, that they will be killed. Their bodies will be laid out in the street for 3.5 days. And they state the cloud mentioned in Revelations is really a UFO. And he states the group's message is, in his opinion, a bit Christian ufology, reincarnation, and conscious mind expansion kind of rolled into one. So this is his examination of the group. And many people will examine the group from religious standpoints or even sociological standpoints. Now, this was 83. So these are the only things being described outwardly about the group. And of course, the group's underground. They're not talking. So also in 1983, Bonnie has already had health issues by this time, okay? And she had earlier been diagnosed with cancer. They pretty much, her and Herff dismiss the doctor. They say they don't believe that she can die, for one thing. They don't believe in doctors. They don't believe in anything. So they kind of dismiss the cancer. She's not treated for her cancer. She ends up in 83 having one of her eyes removed surgically. So she is very sick. The cancer is spreading. They're not doing anything about the cancer. Terry, remember her daughter Terry, she relates that kind of this whole time Bonnie is writing to her. And again, Bonnie and her were really close. She was really close with her mom. But she states she noticed that come 1980, 1981, her mother's letters had shifted. And she felt, I mean, her mom didn't come like right out and say it, but she felt like Bonnie wanted to leave the group. Now, maybe it was because she knew she was sick. I don't know. But there is a final letter written to Terry in 1984 where Bonnie literally spells out, she states that she wants to get out, but there was no graceful way to leave. Like, this is what she says. That is so absolutely sad. And this was in 84. Now, between 83 and 85, Bonnie's growing more and more ill. Obviously, she was obviously ill to the whole group, but he finally gets her to Texas, and she is admitted at the Parkland Memorial Hospital around June 19th of 85. And this is in Dallas. This is the same hospital where they took JFK, by the way. Now, he puts her in the hospital under a false name, Shelley West. And she does pass away on June 19th. And Herff does not, he has her cremated. He gets her ashes. It said that he spreads them. He does not tell her family. He does not reach out to any of them. Now, Terry is never contacted. Nothing is said at all to them. Kind of fast forward. Terry is trying to get in touch with Bonnie because February 1st of 1986, Bonnie's mom Lee dies. She passes away. Now, so Bonnie's died. Poor Terry's dealing with the death of her grandma. She's trying to get in touch with her mom, and she reaches out to the group. Well, the group states that she can't talk to Bonnie, and they ask Terry to give the information to relay to Bonnie. Well, Terry's like, no, this is very personal. This is a personal message. Well, a few days after this, Terry states that two followers named Dan and Liv, they show up at her door with photographs of her mother and different things, and they tell her that her mom died 9 months earlier. So back in June. So she finds out in at the end of February of 86 that her mom had passed away in June of 1985. So, and this is how she finds out. And only because she had reached out and tried to get a hold of her mom. So this is absolutely devastating to Terry. You know, she had just lost her grandma. She finds out that Bonnie had passed, and of course I can't even imagine her grief knowing and getting that letter from Bonnie that she wanted to leave the group. Like how incredibly sad. That hits me. Now the whole premise this whole time for Herff and Bonnie is that they would be killed and martyred. And their whole premise this whole time is that their physical bodies have to be physically put on this UFO and physically sent to heaven. Now, once Bonnie became sick, Herff began shifting his message to convey that, and he states their energy of the two were really too great for the next level, and that human bodies really couldn't handle such. Really convenient, right? So he had already shifted before Bonnie passed. Now, Bonnie and Herff really had from the beginning of when they were working, like once they went underground and working with their followers more closely, like they really taught their members to have what they called flexibility, because the ideals and rules of the group and of the message were constantly shifting in the wind, and they knew that. So they were like, you all need to practice flexibility. You need to be open to basically whatever we say is the truth, whatever we convey is the truth. Like, don't question it, don't discuss it. This is the fact. So Herff was they had kind of laid that out because they knew that they were constantly shifting their message, their story. And so, yeah. And obviously, with Bonnie's health, and then, of course, with her passing, like, there has to be a whole new message. There has to be a new way. So, Herff, on the flip side, he is absolutely devastated by the loss of Bonnie. Now, Herff may have looked kind of outwardly, especially later, and we'll kind of get in this part too, as the so called leader, but he was very, very reliant on Bonnie. Really, Bonnie was his elder. He always looked to her. He would talk to her. She kind of made the decisions. And although she kind of quietly kind of sat because he would drone on and on and on and on and on in meetings, but she was the strength. She was the pillar. She had the belief system. And yeah, so this was a devastating loss to her, to the group when she passes, and to the group. So Herff, he's clearly devastated. The group knows he's distraught. He really is keeping it under wraps. Like, he's not expressing it much, but in meetings, he would shift into saying he too would exit his vehicle, his body. They called their bodies their vehicle. And like T, he had more to do. And he did explain to the group that T was not dead. He's like, T is not dead. Like, she has just gone on to this next level, but she is still very much communicating with me. She's telling me everything from the next level. So this is the message being conveyed to the followers at this time. Now, this is where I'm going to leave off, guys. So in part two, we're going to pick back up right there in 1986 with Herff on his own, doing his thing. Yeah, and just note, Heaven's Gate, that name is not even a thing. That is not a thing. That is not in existence, even in 1986. So there's just still kind of so much more to see the progression of this group, and hopefully you guys can see that. Like this was actually very a very just kind of unorganized situation, honestly. So yeah, so but very interesting, and I really didn't know all of that. So that was really interesting to me, hopefully interesting to you guys. But so much more to cover. Thank you so much for listening. Lots more to come. Stay tuned. Please leave a comment and a rating, and I'll be with you guys for part 2 in about a week. Thanks so much. Bye.